Hello everyone and welcome back to Final Fantasy VII Intergrade. We sat on a bench while everyone watched us.
Cool.
Glad you got to have a nice rest, Yuffie.
I mean, what's her name
Well,
just stood there so she doesn't get a rest.
What?
Hatson, you're back.
What's this about?
That is the worst place for a pigeon to land.
Oh yeah, it would tear through that hat and like
Go to the pillar.
freaking.
No,
rip
I
up
mean,
the
like-
skull.
Hurry.
Its tail feathers were like directly above Yuffie's face.
Oh, like that. Yeah, yeah, that would be.
Yeah.
Otherwise known as the roof of the slums. Follow me, guys.
Okay.
So is
So
this
we're-
girl's like shtick the I'm the emotionless
Well,
character?
No, she's not a kudere.
Okay.
No.
She's just serious.
Okay.
I mean, she's less serious than the typical anime serious character. She seems to have at least a little verve to her. Actually, I'm
She's
thinking.
also not
Definite,
around. She's
too.
also she's also not around for very long.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping she would be, actually.
Nah.
Hey, I'm talking to you. Answer me. Well,
Oh no, random guys.
Oh no, it's these two, isn't it?
The fuck.
You two go after Gigia. I'll head back and tell the other
If those are the same two guards that I'm thinking of, then yeah, that's about on point.
Do you have any idea what Gigia actually
Who is GG again?
The blonde guy.
Yeah, but like, what is his deal?
He's just the guy who's helping us.
Oh, okay.
Basically, it's a distraction.
Yeah. Also, this music track we're gonna get for this next big section of the game is so good. It's right out of Cowboy Bebop.
That's the first thing I thought of when I heard the ba bum ba bum ba bum ba bum.
Okay, so this is a random ass time to bring it up, but I kind of hope that in Final Fantasy VII Remake, we finally find out, like, where moogles fit in the Final Fantasy VII universe. Because, like, we know moogles exist, right? Kind of.
how about later?
Moogles are weird in that they work better much more in the fantasy side of Final Fantasy rather than kind of the sci-fi aspect. So the more sci-fi ones always have to try to explain either why they're not around yet people know of them, or they're so few and far between they don't matter much.
I mean, Final Fantasy VII's weird in that it's really only feels like sci-fi when you're in Midgar, or like any of the Midgar and tech stuff is being prominent. It's
But,
plenty fantasy outside of the Midgar setting, you know. And
But I
they
mean,
fit
like-
fine there.
But I mean, like, everyone knows what moogles are, right? There's a frickin' arcade game in the Golden Saucer in the original game. Yuffie's wearing a moogle costume.
There's the
They
Moogle
pop
kid
the word
for...
they pop the word moogle out like just so casually there. So the assumption is that everyone knows what moogles are, but we never find out like what they know about them, and we never see one.
They could just be like incredibly rare creatures.
Well, I mean,
you know, like if
it-
somebody said like, "Oh, look, there's a woolly mammoth," you know.
It might be like in Final Fantasy XIV where most people can't see them, but like we never meet someone who does, so they're just completely invisible. But like everyone knows what moogles are. Where the fuck are they? I want to know. There's no quest in the game that shows them, and none of the expanded universe Final Fantasy VII things have shown us where they are.
Are
And
they
yet,
in the original Final Fantasy VII? I don't
just
know.
in the arcade game, and I think
Like
I
the
think we
play
see them
thing,
in like the
yeah.
snowboarding game, don't
Yeah,
we?
I think so.
But I think that's like just a visual gag because like there's no reason for the snowboarding game to have all those weird things happening.
It could just be like, you know, like a fairy tale, and you know, it would be like if that guy there had just been like, "Hey, look, a leprechaun," and those guys were actually like, "Hey, what? An actual leprechaun? Holy shit!"
I mean, maybe, but it's like
Wait, whoa! Oh, it's like
It's
going
a
up.
moving
Okay.
rope, yeah.
I thought that
It-
she was just going upwards up a fire
It's-
slide.
Yuffie must
like-
go now. Yuffie must go now. Her Wu-Tai needs her.
it's just one of those things where at some point you kind of want someone to, you know, tell you to like, but never mind, you know. Okay, so
Yeah, Final Fantasy VII was typically less prominent on the like mascot-y elements of Final Fantasy. I feel like the PlayStation
kind of
games were the ones that started to tone that stuff down.
Except for 9, obviously, but
yeah, except for 9. But like Final Fantasy VIII, I feel like doesn't really have a lot of Moogle-y or Chocobo-y type stuff. They made the Chocobos
the only Moogle that I remember in Final Fantasy VIII is this optional ass summon that you use a special item to summon. It's like one of the Guardian Forces that wasn't actually a Guardian Force, but you find an item that lets you summon it, and it's expendable, so you never use it.
Yeah, and then like Final Fantasy X, they were more of a joke costume in 10-2. You know, like, oh, look, we have these silly things, so here's us referencing them in a tongue-in-cheek sort of way. Which,
I guess,
you know, I feel like just due to the general vibe Final Fantasy is going for in the modern day sort of stuff, having the kind of mascot-y characters around in their normal in their, let's say, Final Fantasy VI and older sense doesn't make as much sense. Unfortunately, just due to how they're trying to go for things. But
I guess that's true, yeah.
I think that
in 12,
what they're
they
going
changed
for
the design.
here works, you know, in that, like, they're very clearly still a part of the world, and they're not, like... It feels less like they're ashamed of them and more that they just don't fit with the aesthetic, so they're referencing them in other ways. Which I think is fine.
And then you have Final Fantasy 13, 13-2, which... turned the Moogle into the most annoying thing in the universe.
Oh, God. I know Final Fantasy 13-1 had, like, the Chocobo and Who's Its Face's afro, which was cute. But what did they do in 13-2 is the one where you play as...
You play as Sarah.
Sarah.
And I like Sarah as a character, honestly. Noel's is the one that's kind of boring. Because he's just kind of generic anime boy, but, like, okay. In 13-2, they kind of went off the rails on a few things. Like, Chocolina.
Ugh.
They decided
Is that the
have...
sexy Chocobo girl?
Yes.
Yeah, and the twist is that she's actually the Chocobo chick, and she's been warped by weird space-time magic into a shopkeeper.
What?
Why?
Yeah,
Why did it need to
she's
happen?
She's the chick from Zaz's hair. Due to space-timey-wimey weirdness.
And then Saz just sort of exists in both games and never goes anywhere. Like, they had this really interesting character, and they just, like, they don't want to use him because, I don't know, I guess he doesn't fit any of the popular tropes, so they don't think people will like him.
It's almost like he's interesting and popular because he doesn't fit any of the typical tropes, you know?
Yeah, pretty much. But, like
almost everybody I've talked to has said that Saz is their favorite character in Final Fantasy 13. Not that there's a lot of other options, because Snow's annoying, Hope's whiny, Vanille is obnoxious. I guess I've heard a couple people say they like Fang. And Lightning is a block of wood with a face, so...
Lightning is okay, but, like, she gets all of her character developing done, like, in the very front half of the game, so... She's just kind of there for most of it.
Oh, wait, no, hold on. There is one person whose favorite character is Lightning, and it's the game's director.
Well,
no, it's not so much Lightning, it's Lightning's armpits.
Lightning is actually quite popular in Japan. But, like, I like Lightning. I just find her character arc is... very unevenly spread throughout the game. So it's not like Cloud, where you're learning things about him throughout the game, and there's a twist later on in the game that redefines everything you know, and then at the end, the final confrontation is really personal for him, so he feels relevant the whole time. Lightning is just kind of the protagonist, and she has an arc that concludes, and the game continues on after that arc concludes. But she manages to maintain, like, screen presence through, like, personality just being really good. It helps that she has a really good English voice actor. Fang is, yeah, pretty cool. In the sense that I think she's one of the characters that's not quite as tropey and feels more significant to the plot.
it helps that she knows what's going on and feels competent, as opposed to most of the other characters you're introduced to at the beginning of the game. Just don't know what they're doing or what's going on, so they're just kind of wandering.
Well, it also helps that Fang isn't introduced at the beginning of the game, and like she's kind of a mystery until she joins your party.
Yeah, so she's a breath of fresh air. It also helps that she's just not completely obnoxious like Snow and Vanille are. Where those,
Vanille is like
Snow and Vanille are so grating.
Oh, Vanille is the second coming of Selfie Tilmet. I just can't stand that kind of character.
Selfie,
you know,
Selfie doesn't have a voice. So.
Somewhat relevant to what's going on. I actually used to be kind of annoyed by Yuffie. I think I was just in my I don't like anime phase at the time, and I wrote her off as being the same thing as Selfie. No, Yuffie's got more going on. Selfie's just like a trope in humanoid form. And Vanille is kind of that too.
Yuffie has a lot of personality. She's one of the louder personalities, but she shows a full depth of emotion, and like you see multiple sides to her. Like you see the goofy silly side a lot, but you also see the side that's genuinely concerned about people. One of the strongest scenes in the game for me, actually, in the original Final Fantasy VII, is when Eris dies. You get different reactions depending on who's in your party. And when I played the game, I had Yuffie in my party, and she just starts bawling and crying on Cloud's shoulder, and he doesn't know how to comfort her because he's also in a weird mental place at that point too. So you see that. You also see, her showing legitimate remorse after the Wutai stuff when she steals all your crap. So you get a full fleshed out sense of her personality in Final Fantasy VII. She's not just the annoying one.
Yeah, and like even her...
As a slight aside on what's going on actually in game, I still don't know what this room is for.
The story of every video game ever. But like, okay, even like speaking of like a full range of emotion and character traits and all, like even Yuffie's like, you'll probably won't ever see it, gold saucer date scene is kind of interesting when you think about it. Because it's not, because like the reason a player might go for it is because they like the cutesy teenage anime girl, but like that's not the way the scene plays. It's more about...
I got Tifa when I played the game. So.
Yuffie is awkwardly interested in Cloud because that's where the affection levels fell. Cloud is just not interested at all. So they go on this incredibly one-sided date in which Yuffie works up the courage to kiss Cloud on the cheek, I think, gets zero reaction, and it's incredibly awkward and uncomfortable for both of them, and... yeah, it's dead in the water from there. And that's, that's very human, when you think about it.
In that, like, she thought it was a date and he was like, no, it's not. Yeah. That's a very real, like, thing that happens. So,
yeah, so, like... What the takeaway is that like it's like as underplayed as the Aerith and Tifa friendship really, but like one of the coolest aspects of Yuffie's character when you really think about the details is how like awkwardly relatable she is in various ways, like right down to like getting airsick really easily, like. Or seasick, motion sick in general.
As someone who was on a boat recently in the ocean and got horribly seasick, yes.
It was also just a neat thing that her and Cloud like bonded over. Whenever you were in the ship, is just like, I hate being on the ship. Me too.
It wasn't even like whenever you were on the ship. It was specifically after he regained his memories of being, awkward seasick Cloud. So like he gave Yuffie advice about how to deal with it because he remembered dealing with that himself. And that was like one of the clues actually that he was the nameless soldier was. The nameless soldier who called attention to himself in that scene in the truck by being motion sick. and Zach had to give him advice.
Yeah, that's honestly one of the things that Final Fantasy VII original, I think, did well, was fleshing out relationships between the party members. A lot of RPGs from that time and from modern days, honestly, kind of just have party members, but the only relationships that get fleshed out are the ones between the main character and all the party members versus the party members between each other.
Or in Final Fantasy VIII's case, the ones between the main character and the 2 other characters in the game that matter.
What, are you saying that cowboy man who's there for 2 scenes isn't important? I'm shocked, Lewis.
Well, he gets to flirt with Selphie a lot, but that's about the extent of the interaction with the party you get from him. He does have a neat scene before the assassination attempt on Sorceress Idea, where he kind of falls apart, and you find out he's not the chill, cool cowboy he pretends to be.
I'm a master assassin hired to kill this person. I've actually never killed anyone before. Then why did we hire you?
Well, the problem with Final Fantasy VIII's party members is that they have enough material to them that if they were to do a Final Fantasy VIII remake, they could, really go to town, and it would be an amazing cast of characters. I was tweeting with someone about this, and I compared them to Biggs and Wedge, which is at once, super insulting because I just compared the entire main party to a couple of NPCs that are around for 10 minutes in the original game, but you could make them all really likable. It would be great. I hope they do it someday.
I mean, Final Fantasy VII for the time had good interaction, but I think the character interactions in the remake are one of the best things about it. It's one of those things where I feel like Final Fantasy VIII probably needs a remake like this more than 7. It's just, I doubt that they would be able to get the excitement level for it.
I think
the rumor is they're going to do something with 9 in the future.
Yeah, 9 is definitely more popular nowadays than 8.
I'm not sure if it's something like this or something more akin to the Dragon Quest remake or something like that, but the rumor is they're doing something like that.
I expect 9 would get more of a straight remake because that would be more in the spirit of the original game too. Because it was kind of about being a classic style game.
It's just one of those, I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah,
it's nice of these monsters.
Look like the Dragon Quest 3 remake because
I'm just using it as an example.
Yeah, but a remake in the spirit of that. I think
these monsters are just sort of chilling, letting you talk.
Yep.
That's nice of them. We ready to fight now?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to get that conversation. I wanted to have the conversation play out because it's you guys interrupted when you.
It's just funny because you're right there, but you're technically outside their range, so the battle hasn't started yet. Ah, man. But
I forget his name. Does he have his own levels, or is he?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
I think it would be wrong to say that Final Fantasy VII had good interactions specifically for the time, because it still has good interactions. It's just good for the particular storytelling style it used. Good for that type of pacing.
Yeah, I guess that's more what I meant in that RPGs aren't paced like that an awful lot anymore. You know, the stories aren't really told in that way. You don't get a lot of RPGs that have their storytelling in the sort of way that they did on the PlayStation. And the PlayStation's also weird in that the pacing of the character, the pacing and the character actions are somewhat similar to the SNES kind of RPGs. The difference is just that the games are usually a lot longer.
They also are a lot more cinematic than their Super Nintendo counterparts.
Yeah, there's definitely more set pieces, and they build towards bigger climaxes overall. Whereas on a lot of SNES RPGs, it's less about that. Actually, the Final Fantasy games on SNES are kind of an exception to that rule, because even if you think about Final Fantasy IV, for example, or Final Fantasy VI, it's often okay, you have a little bit of overworld and exploration and maybe a cave or whatnot, and then you get to a town and then there's a big thing in the town. In Final Fantasy IV, the town gets invaded, or in Final Fantasy VI, there's like the river chase scene or whatnot, and that's fairly different from a lot of other RPGs at the time. Like if you compare it to Dragon Quest V, for example, Dragon Quest V doesn't tend to have a lot of set pieces. It's mostly just you do a thing and then you do the next thing.
Dragon
and
Quest
then you do the next
from
thing.
I mean, you can obviously say this more than me, but Dragon Quest from my experience is very
Yeah, I know.
there's the end goal and you're just kind of going about your business until you get to that point, whereas Final
Yes.
Fantasy tends to do a lot of each place you go to has to be a plot point.
Yeah, that is I would say that's generally very true. That also has a lot to do with Final Fantasy in general is more linear on
Yeah.
SNES than Dragon Quest. In Dragon Quest, you can generally
so
it's
not.
like find the 6 things, and you can find the 6 things in roughly any order you want. Oh my god, it's a giant turkey velociraptor.
I love Sonam's reaction to just everything at this point, because at this point, early on you can tell he was just kind of humoring Yuffie with the whole boss thing just to kind of get her to get a move on. At this point, he's just like, this girl's a pain in the ass.
Well, I mean, she's a ninja who freaked out at the sight of a mouse. So, a little weird. Oh, are we gonna see
You know,
the
when I
summon?
first heard
No,
that
it's gonna die
dinosaurs
too
were
fast.
supposed to have feathers, this is like what I imagined. It's just like, oh, velociraptors are actually turkeys, and my brain kind of melted, and then I went back to just imagining
yeah.
dinosaurs the way I did when I was 9, and everything was back to the way it was supposed to be.
Well, I mean,
Just imagining velociraptors as giant turkeys, just, I don't know.
Not really turkeys, but
Yeah, but that's
More
how
like-
my brain
more
processed
like,
it.
well, it would be more like ostriches, to be honest.
yeah, ostriches are the closest things, but think like more sharp, teethy sort of things, as well as way
But
less bulby and more long.
But here's the thing. There are dinosaurs that didn't have feathers.
Yeah.
There are even dinosaurs that look like, you know, your standard tyrannosaur types that didn't have feathers. So it's not like the kind of dinosaurs that we imagine didn't exist. It's more like there was more variety in dinosaurs than we initially thought, you know?
Thanks, Spielberg.
So what you're saying is that 8-year-old me would be excited at the prospect of even more types of dinosaurs. Okay, that's cool. I'm alright with that.
Also, we're doing a Crash Bandicoot minigame where we have to break all the crates.
Do they all fall in your head if you miss some?
No, that would be funny though.
Great,
get
but
to the-
you missed 1, 2, 3,
Yeah,
4,
you
5
just
materia.
you just get to the end. It's like great, but you miss, and then it just all falls on Yuffie, and Sona just watches bemused.
But, okay, you see, that never made sense to me in Crash Bandicoot because all of the boxes break. Like, they break on your head when you finish the level. So shouldn't you get the box gem anyway?
I suppose that's one way of looking at it. Also, Sonic 06 cries looking at all this box stuff.
Oh, man.
Oh,
Seeing,
God.
I mean,
Silver-
box
Silver-
physics in video
Sil-
games
Sil-
have always
yeah.
been silly. Oh,
Yeah, no, Silver's just in the corner rocking back and forth in a fetal
Yeah,
position.
but they were especially silly in 06. Like,
oh yeah,
the
they bounce like
gravity
they're
was,
bouncing. They bounce like,
Like-
that?
The weight was way undertuned. And,
Yeah,
It
they
just wound
bounced
up-
like playground balls.
every physics object in that game did. It was like everything was made of styrofoam.
That's just a Havoc at Physics Engine problem where everything, like, like honestly,
Like
like,
that.
this is kind of reminding me of 2008 era video game physics. A lot of games, honestly, getting stuff to feel like they're properly weighted has always been an issue for stuff like this, you know. But seeing things bounce around more is more.
I'm just
fun.
waiting for waiting for one of these massive box chunks to fly directly at Solon and just send him sailing off.
Oh my god, you actually
the
get
cart.
marked on that?
Yes.
Do you get anything for getting more, or no?
For a break, no, it's just a ranking thing. And the bigger box you break, the better reward you get.
I mean, I'm glad that they throw stuff like this in because like it shows that they've kind of learned their lesson from 13. And I keep
characters
bringing
have
that
fun.
up, but I'm never gonna let them live that down. Yeah, it's because like there was like nothing to do along that path that made it especially painful. If you got stuff to do, then I don't mind the linear sections in your games, you know?
Honestly,
Just, you
like
know,
this
mix it up.
whole section has seemed really cool. Like we haven't talked about it at all. But like the wall running and making it kind of a puzzle to figure out how you have to manipulate these things to make it through. Like honestly, this is probably the most interesting the overworlds traversing has been out of all of the Final Fantasy remake stuff I've seen. And that's really cool.
Now we're back in the above plate sun lamp section. I recognize the machinery here.
I also like that the music sounds echoey now because we're in like the big empty maintenance
big
area.
empty area.
But
yeah.
it's still got like the saxophone going.
The way she just bounces down onto the bench.
That's not ladylike, Yuffie.